How's it going, everybody? Welcome into the shop. First off, I apologize for the humming noise you're hearing. That is my vacuum pump to my veneer bag. I've got some veneer going right now, so just bear with me on that. I wanted to give you a quick background on this box. A good friend of mine, Jake Campbell, who's also a friend of Matt Character, who's over on Off the Ranch. You might have seen his video from a couple weeks ago, and if you haven't, I'm going to put a link to that in the description because it'll really tell you a lot more about Jake. He unexpectedly and tragically passed away. It was probably 4 weeks ago, and when it happened, his friends and his wife Breezy wanted me to build an urn for him, which I was honored to do. Anytime I can use my craft to serve someone in that way is a blessing to me and an honor, and something I'm more than willing to step up and do. It's obviously not something you ever want to have to do, but I was honored to do it. And so when they approached me, they just wanted me to do it. They didn't have much input other than the fact that they didn't really want it to look like an urn. So I've known Jake for a while. He's been a great friend to me. He runs Bunker Branding and sold my merch, and he's kind of he's just well put together. And so when I thought about this box, I wanted it to be kind of a gentleman's box, something that elaborates the grain of this wood. I had some post oak from my family farm that I've stashed for a while, and I pulled it out and used some of it. And so I wrapped the corners all the way around with this grain that just flows, and it looks really cool. And then on top, I did a herringbone veneer, which really put that gentleman's touch to the box. And so I hope you guys enjoy the video. I do want to say that they set up a GoFundMe to help support. Jake left behind his wife and 2 kids. So Matt shared that, and I was overwhelmed by his following and how they supported it. And I don't have near the following or influence that Matt has, but I would really appreciate if some of you guys could jump on board and head over. The link is in the description, and contribute to that. That would mean a lot to me, and I would really appreciate it. So let's just dive in and start building this box. I hope you guys enjoy the build, and thanks for tuning in. Okay, so for this video, I'm going to kind of walk you guys through it with some voiceover, narrate the whole process. It'll make more sense that way. It was not easy to film this. I didn't really do a great job of keeping it cohesive, so without me talking, I think you're going to get lost. Starting off, I start on the bandsaw, just roughing out this material. So this is the post oak I was telling you about. Post oak is basically a white oak that grows in Texas. I think it probably grows across the United States. But it's a very, very pretty color of white oak, kind of a darker color. And this particular piece had some nice black stripes in between the sap and the actual heartwood, which I really wanted to show in the box. So once I rough out the parts on the bandsaw, here I am face jointing, and just cleaning up the faces, milling them flat and getting nice smooth square faces so I can work with the material. You can notice there how beautiful that grain is. And this is mostly quarter sawn. There's a little rift in this. I tried to get mostly quarter sawn. So with the parts milled, I'm going to go back to my bandsaw. And so I wanted to wrap the grain around this entire box. So it's just a continuous grain. In order to do that, I need to resaw my box parts out of this board. And I think I'm going to about 1/2 inch or 7/16. And obviously, I think, I'm trying to recall because I'm doing the voiceover a little ways down the road, but I needed two pieces to get it, because I was going to get a long side and a short side out of one piece. So 2 pieces at about 1/2 inch resawed off the bandsaw. You can just see that's a pretty cool shot there with that blade coming through. And then I go over to the wide belt. So yeah, we're about 7/16 here, and I'm going to run them through, just smooth off those bandsaw marks. It comes off the bandsaw really, really smooth and flat. You just got to clean off the mill marks, and that's what I'm using the wide belt for. You could also use the joiner and a planer to do that, but I am fortunate to have this giant sander that makes quick work of it. I usually start with a 80 grit and then finish it off with 150 grit. So with the parts sanded, I'm going to move on to cutting the miters. I don't show a lot of this here. The basic idea is just to as you cut them, to lay them out, make sure you're following that pattern. So it's easy to get off if you're not paying attention to what you're doing, but I'll cut my first miter and then measure the length and then cut that other one and just kind of keep going off of that. And every time I cut one, I'll lay the box out, make sure I'm doing it right. And you can see, I mean, that's beautiful and it works perfectly. It's a really nice feeling when you see that happen. And I just continue that process all the way around the box. It's pretty straightforward. I decided to do the wraparound miters just because I wanted to really showcase the grain on this, and I thought that would be a little different look. Most urns probably don't have that look, and like we said, I didn't want it to look like an urn. So that's why I wanted to do this. And you can see as I lay this out how that just looks like one board. And this tape trick really works well. And right now I'm just roughing it together so I can get measurements for my lid. And so the lid, like I said, was a herringbone veneer. So I've got to draw it up in SketchUp and figure out the size of my veneer pieces and how many I need. That's what I'm doing here. I'm counting them up in CAD. Writing it down, and then I've got to go mill all these little pieces. I think they were 2 inches by 1 inch. So you'll see here Nick and Mark came out and spent an afternoon helping on this. They really wanted to be a part of the process. Nick is Jake's brother and Mark is one of Jake's best friends, so it was cool to have them come out and spend time with me and help build this, and I'm glad they got a chance to put their hands on it and be a part of the process. I put Nick, who actually has some experience on woodworking equipment, I put him on the table saw to cut these all to length. We just got a stop set up on the fence, and just a matter of, I mean, there was probably like 40 of these he cut, and just sitting here knocking them out. And he's got 2 strips stacked on each other, so each cut gets you 2 little veneer pieces. So this was my first attempt at the veneer, and here I'm actually gluing it down to the MDF core and gluing them together. And it actually was going really smooth. I used Gorilla Glue here, which is a foaming glue, and that was where my fault was. I thought that would, I don't really know what my thought process was. I just thought that would be helpful to use. And once it started foaming, it started pushing all those pieces apart, and it just didn't work out. And so what I found out, I'm going to try to explain all this as quick as I can, because I somehow lost the footage here. What I ended up doing here is I've got a wax down on this MDF, so all I'm doing is gluing the pieces together. This is my 3rd attempt at this, or my 4th attempt, and this is the one that worked. So instead of gluing it down to the MDF core and gluing them together, I'm just gluing them together right now, edge jointed. And then I have a sheet basically that I'll run through the sander and then glue to the core. And so this is the finished panel. I used one of the bad ones for the bottom that'll be inside the box, and then the good one that you just saw me laying up is on the top. And I do apologize, you know, like I said, I just did not film this as well as I normally do. My mind wasn't on it, so you don't see a lot of this veneering process. But this is the finished top, and right now I'm just fitting it in the grooves on the side. It'll lock and be tight in those grooves. So you'll see the grooves on the box. It's the inside of the box, and I'm doing the glue up now. I'm going to use this tape trick that you saw earlier. The tape's already on there, and I just apply the glue to both sides of the miters and basically just wrap it up and close it. If your miters are cut properly, it works really, really well, and it's really the best way to do miters. So the bottom will slide in, and then the next is to slide in that top. And this is a little tricky. It takes a little work to get it right. Actually, since the top is veneered and it's stable and it's not moving, I actually glue it in place too to add a little structure to the box, to the lid. And finally, when you get it all closed up, you can just tape it. I did put some clamps on it to pull a few spots together. I had let this sit for a while after I cut the miters, almost a week. And the sides had bowed just a little bit, so the force of the clamps wasn't quite pulling it all the way close. So I mean the force of the tape, excuse me, was not quite pulling it all together. So I did use some clamps to help out. So here's the really fun part, and I really wanted Nick to come do this, but we just couldn't work it out. I set the bandsaw up and actually cut out the lid off the box. This is the best way to do it, and I wanted to fit it or cut it in a point where you would have that sapwood line just above the lid separation. You can see that right there. It works really well. It's it's really a fail-proof way. Doing it on the table saw, there's always a risk of getting a kickback and destroying your box. So I love to use the bandsaw for this. You can see that herringbone pattern inside the box as well. It's kind of cool. So with that cut out, I take my hand plane and I just smooth out the bottom of the lid and the top. Make sure everything fits really flat and well together. I don't want it to look like there's really a lid there. I just kind of want it to look like a box without a lid, and you don't even really know it's there. So in order to do that, I really want to fine tune how that lid comes together with the box. And it's really easy since you're cutting it off of the piece, so you're basically just cleaning up the bandsaw marks. I'm chamfering the edge here. What you don't see in the video, I made a mesquite interior for the box. I lined the inside of the box with mesquite, and that mesquite comes up past the inside of the box about 1/4 of an inch and gives a place for that lid to suck down on and keep it from sliding around, and it pinches tight basically. There's no hinges or hardware. And you'll see it here, I think, in the next shot as I do this little bit of carving. Well, actually, you're not going to see it, but you'll see it when I finish the box. So the last step is the box is assembled in the vise here, and I just want to carve a really cool little relief where the lid meets the box. This is a point, since it's really a pressure fit, this is a point where you can get your thumb in there and kind of push the lid off. It's also a decorative detail. I like the way it looks. I left the carving marks in that little relief, and it helps line everything up. So if you don't have this, you don't know which way the lid goes on, and it really only should go on one way. So now I know that those two, that carving needs to meet up, and you know where the lid meets the actual box. And you can see that black streak there in between the sap and the heart. It looks really cool. So that's the best look you've got of that herringbone pattern since I put it up, and that's my own fault for not shooting very well. The only issue I had with it is the sequence got towards the end. I lost this line in the top, and I wish that it carried all the way through. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's a bottom right corner where the sequence kind of changes. You can see it there. But the finish goes on. I just use an oil finish. You can see the mesquite on the inside, how it sticks up there, and it gives a catch for that lid. It's really just a beautiful wood, and it really came out nice, and I was super happy with it. And I know, anytime I get the opportunity to use my craft to honor somebody, especially somebody like Jake, who was a friend of mine, it's really humbling and really an amazing experience. So it's one of those things I'll never forget, building this for him. And I miss you, Jake, and I know you're in a better place. I know you're in heaven, and there's a lot of joy that can be had for that. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Like I said, the link is in the description if you feel compelled to go help out Jake's family. I would greatly appreciate that. And thanks again, and we'll see you next time.